Welcome AI isn't just changing business, it's creating a whole new world of legal and financial risks that can cost millions, and frankly, put board members and company officers right in the hot seat. So today, we're going to break down exactly how corporate leaders can build a fortress to protect themselves and their companies. All right, before we get into the weeds, we have to get something really important out of the way. What we're about to discuss is for educational purposes only. This is not legal advice. For your specific situation, you absolutely need to talk to your personal attorney or corporate counsel, someone who's familiar with the laws and the trends in all the relevant jurisdictions. Okay, with that said, let's dive in. So, why all the fuss about AI governance? Well, to really get it, you have to see what happens when it's missing. We're going to kick things off with a few real-world cautionary tales that show just how incredibly high the stakes are when AI goes off the rails. First up, let's talk about a financial tech firm. They went all out, marketing their platform as AI-powered. You've seen it everywhere, right? And that claim was designed to do one thing: pump up their valuation and get investors excited. But here's the thing. When you looked under the hood, that powerful AI was really just some pretty basic automation. The SEC has a name for this: AI washing. They alleged it was a material misrepresentation, and the fallout was swift. A shareholder derivative suit was filed. That's when shareholders sue the board on behalf of the company, and it targeted the directors personally for their failure of oversight. The end result? $50 million in settlements alone. And that doesn't even begin to cover the damage to their reputation. Now, let's move on to our next example, which is maybe even more troubling. Okay, this one involves a healthcare provider. They were trying to do a good thing, using an AI to pinpoint high-risk patients who needed extra care. But the algorithm they built had a really deep hidden flaw. You see, the AI took a shortcut. It just assumed that people with higher healthcare costs must be the sickest. But because of historical inequities in the system, Black patients often had lower healthcare spending, even when they were just as sick. The AI learned that bias from the data and systematically started denying them access to care, which led to a massive class action discrimination lawsuit. And for our third story, let's turn to a big retailer. They developed this amazing AI personalization engine. You know the type. It collected tons of customer data to give everyone a perfectly customized shopping experience. Now, this thing was fantastic for sales, but it also created a giant, centralized treasure chest for hackers. They found one little vulnerability in its API and walked away with the personal and financial data of millions of customers. And the worst part? Nobody even knew it happened for months. The consequences were just staggering. The company got slammed with a $20 million fine, and that was just under Europe's GDPR rules. On top of that, there were other penalties and, you guessed it, a huge class action lawsuit from all the customers whose data was exposed. Okay, so those stories are pretty intense, right? The question is, how do you prevent these kinds of disasters from happening to you? It all starts by building the foundation of your fortress, a really clear, comprehensive AI rulebook. One of the most critical parts of that rulebook is defining human oversight. And there are really two main ways to think about this. Human in the loop is like having a co-pilot who has to sign off on every major decision, perfect for high-stakes stuff like hiring or lending. Human on the loop is more like an air traffic controller, monitoring the whole system and only stepping in when something looks wrong. Getting that balance right is absolutely crucial. And look, let's be realistic. Things will go wrong sometimes, so a prepared response plan is everything. It needs three key things. First, clear escalation paths so the right people find out immediately. Second, clear accountability so there's no finger pointing. And third, a real commitment to learn from every single incident so you never make the same mistake twice. So, you've got your policies in place. Great. But rules don't mean much if you're not watching to see if they're being followed. You need a watchtower, a system for constant monitoring. You know the saying, you can't manage what you don't measure. This table right here shows the vital signs your board needs to be tracking constantly. Are our AIs accurate so we don't lose money? Are the outcomes fair so we don't get hit with discrimination suits? And are we in compliance with our own rules? This data turns governance from a guessing game into a science. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this one question. And it's a question your board has to be able to answer at any given moment, not with a feeling, but with cold, hard data from your monitoring systems. Okay, so you've built the rules and you've got the watchtower.
But even with the best plans, you still need one final line of defense. This is your legal and financial shield.
Now, if you are a director or an officer, listen up. You need to pull out your D&O insurance policy tonight and start asking these questions. Just assuming you're covered for AI is an incredibly dangerous gamble. Does the policy even mention AI? Are there tricky tech exclusions hidden in the fine print? And do the coverage limits even come close to your real liability? You have to know. Now let's talk about your vendors, the people you're buying this AI tech from. Your contract with them will have a word in it: indemnification. It's basically their promise to pay for any damage their technology causes. But a promise is just that, a promise.
And here's the absolute key. A promise to cover your losses is completely worthless if the vendor doesn't have any money. This is why your contracts must require them to carry their own sufficient insurance. Because if a multi-million-dollar disaster happens, you need to know for sure that they can actually write the check.
All right, one final point, and it's a big one. Building this AI fortress, it isn't a one-time project. The whole AI landscape is changing at lightning speed, and your governance has to keep up. Truly effective governance is a continuous cycle. It means you're constantly reviewing your frameworks. You're building a culture where people think about ethics. And, this is critical, you're committed to a continuous education and AI literacy for your leaders so they can stay ahead of new risks. This is a journey, not a destination. This has been part 6 of a 6-part overview by Virtualization Options LLC, focused on the potential legal risks from a lack of AI governance and how to establish it. As every organization is unique, Virtualization Options LLC works with organizations to develop custom, organization-specific training to address specific needs, risk exposure, and productivity goals. Of course, this comes with no warranty, expressed or implied. Thank you for watching.